Hello everybody, Anna Sabramowitz here, your interactive storytelling coach. Try number 2. All right, so welcome. Today's session is, it's really going to be about clients. It's going to be talking about how to work with people, all right? And here's some scenarios for you to consider. And this is what I'm going to talk about for the next little while. So if this resonates with you, you better stick around. You're going to get some good info. So has this ever happened to you? Somebody approaches you and asks you to produce a product, and let's say you are a learning experience designer or a instructional designer, and the product that they want is not what you think should be offered. It is not a good fit. So there's one scenario, right? So somebody wants something that you don't think is a good idea for them to have. Or 2, somebody wants something and you don't do that thing. Or for you, that thing is not a good quality thing and you're not gonna, that's not what you do, right? Has this ever happened to you? This happens to me all the time, especially when you're a freelancer or when you own your own little design agency. You get a lot of different kinds of people assuming what you do, seeing the tool that you use and assuming what you're gonna produce with that tool. And also a lot of times what people do is they'll come in and they'll negotiate with you. This is the most fun piece for me. So if that sounds interesting and something that you've been struggling with, I'd love to talk to you here. So stick around. Now, I am the interactive storytelling coach. And if interactive storytelling is something you want to get into and you want to learn how I got into it and how it's working for me and my students, guess what? I have a free webinar. It's on demand. No need to show up at a certain time. It's at elearningsecrets.com. If you go there, you get to see it whenever you want. So go for it. Some people, it's like a masterclass of interactive storytelling with tons of examples. So if you want to see that, you definitely want to go there. And some people have told me, they're like, I watched it in chunks. So it is 2 hours of awesome. All right. Hey, we've got some people here. Prasanth, welcome. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I know you guys could be doing other things. And also, I just wanted to say, if you are watching this and it's, past the live and you're not able to answer ask the live questions, it's totally cool. Say that this resonates with you in the comments, because I get notifications even afterwards and I see your feedback. So I'd love that. All right. So true story. I'm at a market in Italy. And me and my husband are coming up to this vendor, and this vendor has some beautiful leather bags. And my husband goes, "Hey, I'd like to get that bag, but I only have. Would you? It's a bargaining thing, right? So would you take this bag? Would you sell this bag for this much money, right?" And the person's like, "No, I'm sorry. This quality craft is only available at this price. I cannot go lower." And then my husband goes, "Hey, but that's all I have." And the vendor says, "Well, then you can't afford it." And I was like, yeah, I guess that's the truth. We can't afford it. Let's move on, right? And I think that's kind of interesting because it works in vendors. It works, when he said that, I was like, yeah, okay, this is beyond our scope, right? But what happens is when you're like a freelancer or you're working with an organization, especially who's notorious for this is NGOs, they'll go, "Hey, we are NGOs," or can we get a discount, right? And it's like all the things that you do, that you're trying to also pay your bills, you're trying to, make a living, and they say, can you give us a discount? And those are difficult times. Those are there's things that you gotta think about there, because a lot of times I've fallen into this trap. I'm like, oh, there's a promise of more projects. Okay, let's do a discount. There's a this is a long-term relationship. I gotta tell you right now, if a vendor is working with you and the first thing they negotiate with you is price, that's going to be a battle to the bottom. And you're always going to be competing on price with other vendors. And it's not a cool place to start off a relationship, because a vendor should respect the fact that you're providing an expertise that they don't have. And yeah, you could say, Anna, that's pie in the sky. Sure, it's easy for you to say, you're an interactive storyteller, woohoo, everybody's coming to you and, they're just handing you money, right? Well, let's just say for the past decade, It's hustle, man. It's hustle. And one of the things you got to think about, kind of like with interactive stories, or just, being a designer, being a learning experience designer, or an e-learning designer, developer, it's kind of like dating. You know how if you're desperate, then you get like some weirdos that come out of the woodwork that want to date you. But when you're not looking for the dates, or you're actively creating relationships with people that you want to work with, that actually works out better because you get to choose. So let's say somebody approaches you and says, I know you don't do this. I know you don't do PowerPoint conversions, right? Import this and add buttons. But that's what I want. And for me, this has happened. Like, this isn't my world. I know some people talk about like how they're like, I've never had that request. And I'm like, wow, your life is awesome. But this has happened to me. And I thought about, I've been in those situations where you're like, do I say yes? Because guess what? I got to tell you, that's easy money, right? Like easy money. But this is the worst thing. Now my name's attached to that piece. Like, PowerPoint conversion is now my name on it. And I talk to people every single week who tell me that they're putting together projects and they hope nobody sees those projects because they're embarrassing and they're not tapping into their potential, because either they're taking on projects where they get bullied into what they have to do, right? Where somebody who doesn't know anything about what makes a great learning experience is looking out at the world, sees a bunch of stuff that sucks and says, I want some of that. And then they come to you and they say, hey, I want more of that stuff. And sometimes you got to pay the bills, and sometimes you don't have the time to be creative. And so what happens is you end up putting out stuff that sucks. And that's the stuff that never even makes it into your portfolio, because you're like, I don't want anybody to think that that's what I do. But that's what you do, right? Been there, done that. So there's that. And I thought about, one of the things that you got to start doing as a person who's trying to build up their skill set is take on projects that actually help you grow. And for a long time, I took on projects and I did work that, in retrospect now, I'm like, man, I just spent so much time and I'm never going to use that skill again. Or that didn't make me better. That just made me like faster at terrible things. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but for me, that's moving backwards. And sometimes it's funny, I get these referrals. They're like, hey, this is an RFP. Why don't you submit something or do this, or this is a project. And it becomes this weird kind of feeling like if somebody is out there putting a project, like there's a request for a proposal out there, that somehow I have to submit something. Like I have to be in that game for some reason. And the switch, this weird kind of, mental shift happened for me when I would see those things and I would say, that sounds terrible. That sounds like 6 months of my life is gonna suck. But look at all that money. And then you're like, no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it, because if you wake up, I have been on those projects, when you wake up every single day and you dread what you do, it affects everything else in your life. I'd rather have less money but be happy. I got to tell you that, because what happens is when you're optimistic, positive, and you can be creative, you can actually talk to people and source people and put your energy into finding people who respect what you do, who are happy to pay you good money because they see the value and they see the work that you've put into their product to make it the best. It's huge. It's huge. And sometimes just saying no and letting go, not being in those runnings, is actually a really big deal. And for me, that was a really big deal, because I felt like I'm giving up money. I'm giving up opportunities. And sometimes some of those projects were for big names and you're like, I don't get to use that as a name that I used to work with. Oh no, this is reality. And then you have to say no. When I started saying no and started saying yes to the things that were important to me and building my skill set, that's when things changed for me. And it's hard. It's so hard. And sometimes you still have to say yes, but that's the truth. All right. So, this is, and I think about it like, I want you to think about it as, let's say you have a fancy restaurant and you're the chef, and you have the Michelin stars are lined up and everything is awesome, right? Everything's fabulous. And somebody comes in for a big birthday party and they're like, hey, and let's say you do like some sort of like, your specialty dish is, I don't know, beef Wellington, who knows, whatever, something fancy. Think Chef Ramsay. And let's say you have this party come in of people and they're like, hey, yeah, we love this. We heard about this restaurant. We can't wait to try the food here. Oh, you guys have no hot dogs on the menu. And you're like, no, we don't. We are a Michelin star restaurant and look at us. We serve amazing food crafted with love. And they're like, yeah, but we want hot dogs. So the chef, if this is Chef Ramsay, he'd be like, out! He'd be like, get out of here, right? I mean, this is what we have on the menu. This is what we make. This is our specialty. We don't make hot dogs. I'm sorry. He wouldn't even be sorry. He'd be like, we just don't do that. That's our thing. We're not sorry. He's not Canadian. He's not sorry. But how many times do we do that in our own projects where we're like, oh, you need this. Okay, well, I guess I'll learn how to do that and make that for you. And I've done that. I've accommodated people who were like, hey, we do explainer videos. And I'll be like, that's cool. I'll learn how to do explainer videos. Never use that skill set again. Did it really help me? I could justify to myself saying, yeah, now I have this other skill set, but I'm not going to be the explainer video guru here, right? That's what's not going to happen. And so I'm wasting my time. I could sell myself on the thing that I was like, oh, I learned some new video skills and yeah, that's cool. But you're like mediocre at 100 things that way. And you really stand out in no way. And also it gives you this false kind of security that you can actually do all this stuff without having to work with pros to make an awesome product. Because you do. To make an awesome product. Like there's no way that I would expect somebody who's producing an amazing movie to be like, I can also do the editing, the acting, and also I'll do the costume design. You'd be like, okay, this is obviously a low budget production that you're just unwilling to let go of your, to work with pros, right? That's really what happens. We get built up in all these things, look for free tools, and anyways, that's another conversation. So one of the things I'm trying to tell you is learn to say no. You don't need to accommodate some people. We don't have to make everything affordable for everybody. Some people just don't fit with our product, don't fit with our services. And, I even talked to the co-founder of Michael Allen Interactions. And I'm like, do you ever get people like Allen Interactions is known for, amazing, award-winning, basically serious games, right? And I'm like, do you ever get people who like are looking for, the whole, here's a bunch of info and we're going to turn it into just like fancy engaging PowerPoints in HTML? And he's like, yeah, of course we do. Even they get those people. And he's like, and we still say no, and this is not what we do. And then we refer them to somebody else who can help them better achieve that. And so that's the thing. I think the approach you have to take is, one, you don't have to accommodate people who are not a good fit. It's actually totally cool not to do that. Two, don't stress out about it. Don't stress about the fact that, some people will like hot dogs and there's nothing wrong with that. There's just people who like hot dogs and then there's people who like beef Wellington. And that's totally cool. But you don't have to start making hot dogs because some people are making hot dogs. If you're the hot dog provider, you don't have to make beef Wellington because somebody likes beef Wellington. Do you know what I mean? So if that comes from this confidence about what you're really good at and where you can add the most value, because that's where you're going to shine and really get good at that stuff. And so you can deliver even better product in a shorter amount of time. And that to me is awesome. All right. So just know that every single piece of work you put out there is an extension of you, is an extension of your craft, is an extension of your skills. And so if you want to have it represent you, you're going to have to say no to things that don't fit and not hold any grudges and be cool with it and be okay with letting some of those things go. There's a trade-off for everything, right? You got to think long term. And a lot of us think very short term because we have to. I get that. But think long term. Think long term. What will this, in 10 years, will this be a plus or a minus on this, dashboard of my skills, a dashboard of my impact and my legacy in this world of L&D? So if you're looking to And a lot of people I talk to and the people who are in my program, technically they're amazing, right? Like some of them have like the skills and the software is amazing. But then there's the piece which comes down to, you know, crafting stories, crafting scenarios that are compelling and interacting with people to extract those situations from them. Because to craft a really compelling interactive story, especially for a target audience that you have to talk to people in the field. You can't just come up with stuff out of your head or out of a manual. It's not going to be genuine, right? So how do you do that? We have a process for that. But a lot of people, this is not intuitive to them. Like developing, you know, converting one type of content to another type of content is very easy. But to come up with a story, that's not intuitive. So that's exactly what we do in our program. And if that sounds like something that you want to get into and take your skills to the next level, because this really is next level skills. This isn't producing click and reveal interactions. That's not teaching anything to anybody. It's actually teaching people how to click and reveal. And how many people are professionals at that? Maybe some L&D people at this time. So if your goal is to craft pieces that last, affect behavior change, leave a legacy, and actually have people engage with them in a meaningful way that actually feels like their lives are being shifted, like their perspective on their potential is being shifted, I'd love to talk to you. So I'll put a link underneath the video. It'll be a link to my calendar. And what happens is after you pick a time that works for you, you also get a bunch of questions. Not a bunch, just a couple. And what they do is they help you just give me a bit of context about what your goals are, because I really want to talk to people who I can actually help. And yeah, it's not free to get into our program, of course, right? Because we are like dedicated coaches and our goal is to make sure that you succeed and launch your interactive story. But if you're ready for this, if this is like you've been working in a place that just has been, you've been hitting that plateau and you're like, I need to get further. I need to either do something for myself. And a lot of people do that. Their workplace isn't really conducive to breaking the status quo, and they need to craft something on their own so that they can build up their own skill sets. Or if you are working at an organization where you think this could be an actual shift that you could introduce, I'd love to talk to you. I think it would be so awesome to have you launch your next interactive story, and I could help you with that. All right, so I hope this was helpful. It's a bit of perspective about, how to deal with, I'm saying internal and external customers. You don't have to be a freelancer to experience this kind of stuff. I bet you guys experience this if you work at a training department all the time, right? People ask you for stuff and you're like, that's not what we do, or that's not a good fit here. And how do you say no, right? How do you start becoming judicious with how you spend your time? Because it's not infinite, right? We're going to go anytime now. How do you spend that time to make sure you're getting the max value out of your days and that you're delivering the most value out of the effort that you're putting in? All right. So I hope you have a fabulous rest of the day, rest of the week, and I will see you here again tomorrow or during our next strategy session. Okay. Take care, friends. Bye.